Hello. I hope everybody's doing good, even though it now gets dark at an absurdly early time, and I feel like as I'm recording, I feel like it's 1 in the morning, even though it's really only 9 p.m. Because it's been dark so long, um, and it's also very cold now. One thing I noticed, the mask, especially if you have like a cotton mask, not so bad in the cold. Kind of actually nice in the cold. So there's a bright spot. I don't mean to startle you. I did get a haircut. I no longer have my giant mane of unruly hair. So I don't mean to scare you with that. Still the same professor here. Okay, so today's video, yes, I'm going to be talking about Independence Day by Seppiata, the story that we should have read. As you'll see under this week, I have now posted the assignment sheet for our literary analysis essay. So all the stuff that we talked about last week in terms of looking at a piece of art and trying to analyze the message that it's sending, and using evidence, to back up our argument. That is what we're doing. We're now doing our own literary analysis essay. And it's going to be about this story, Independence Day. That's something I'm requiring, that we write about this story, Independence Day by Seppiata. So go read that if you haven't done so. I would stop the video and go and make sure you've read that. I know it's a little bit long, but I think that's going to help once we're writing about it, because there's a lot of evidence from the story you can bring in. So for this video, and if you look at the assignment sheet, I have some suggested topics on there for like different kinds of messages or different topics that I think the story touches on. So I am going to be going through those, and we will all be going through those in the next couple of weeks. I'll have some videos, we'll do some discussions, all that. But for this class, I just kind of want to talk about the plot, just like the basics. Because, if you didn't understand something about the plot, it can mess up everything else, Like, I've read essays before about the story where, like, it seemed like it was going good, and then they just, like, totally misunderstood who one of the character was or something, and it kind of throws everything off for the reader. Um, so, yeah, I want to talk about some of the characters, the plot, and just make sure we're all kind of on the same page with the story, and then we'll get into analyzing it. So characters, let's start there. Obviously, we have our main character, Eve, right? Who is younger. She's maybe in her early 20s. Um, she is from Nigeria. She is now living with the Doragos as their nanny, right? She's living with them in their basement, and working for them, like helping to take care of their kids, and all kinds of stuff like that, right? I think the easiest place where you can maybe get confused with this story is the flashbacks to Nigeria, right? So make sure that when you're reading, you kind of realize, are we in the present in New Jersey, or are we in a flashback back in Nigeria? Because obviously, since Eve is our main character, we're kind of inside her head, right? And certain things happening in the present, where she lives in New Jersey, take her back to things that happen in Nigeria, and kind of informs like the way that she understands America and stuff like that. Okay, so that's who Eve is, right? Another important thing to think about with a character in anything you're reading is their motivations. What does the character want? What are they trying to achieve? What are their goals in the story? So for Eve, I would say it's that she wants to be a nurse, right? She talks about how she went to school back in Nigeria to be a nurse. She couldn't find jobs there, and then she got this offer to come be a nanny in America, where she would actually make more money being a nanny than being a nurse in Nigeria. So she takes that offer, comes to America to be the nanny, but that's not what she ultimately wants, right? She's kind of doing it as a short-term thing. It helps her to get into America, which is, obviously is a good opportunity or whatever. But that's not where she wants to be. She does want to move on and become a nurse and kind of have her own job, right? Have her own independence, right? The title of the story, where that'll be coming up a lot. So in order to do this, she wants to be a nurse. That's her motivation. In order to do this, she would have to leave the Doragos, right? And I think by the end of the story, I think she is about to, right? We'll talk about that more. But yeah, she wants to be a nurse. She would have to leave to do that. That's Eve. Mrs. Dorago, obviously, is the mother of the family, wife of Mr. Dorago. She, uh, I guess it seems I'm not sure exactly what she's doing right now. If she's like currently working or if she so her motivation, right? She wants to become a doctor. It's another like there's all kinds of complicated stuff about like immigration and green cards and working papers and who's authorized to work in the country and who isn't and stuff like that. So I'm not sure exactly where Mrs. Drago fits in with that stuff. But she wants to be a doctor, but currently she, is spending most of her time like taking care of the kids and stuff, right? And then Eve comes, and then she's kind of like trying to get Eve to take care of the kids. But she wants to be a doctor. That's her motivation. And in order for her to become a doctor, she would need Eve to take care of the kids even more and like almost full time, basically, right? I'm going to look at this part in the text in a minute. But at one point, Mrs. Durago, she explains how in order for her to become a doctor, she wants to go and like live, I don't know, I guess essentially like on campus at like the hospital or something, so she can do like her residency. Um, which is like you have to be like an apprentice doctor before you like become a doctor, right? So she wants to basically move out of the house to do that, and if she's going to do that, she would need Eve to basically take care of the kids by herself. Um, and yeah, so I think that's important with the motivations between Eve and Mrs. Durago. We have a fundamental contradiction, a tension there, right? Because Eve wants to leave and become a nurse to pursue her own goals and stuff, and Mrs. Durago needs Eve to stay and watch the kids if she's going to go and pursue her dreams and goals and stuff. So that is kind of like the fundamental tension of the story, is that Eve wants to leave, Mrs. Durago needs her to stay, right? Okay, let's keep moving. Mr. or Dr. Durago, I guess. What we know about him is that he is a doctor. He works all the time. It seems like he makes a lot of money. He's not really interested in his family. It tells us how he doesn't really help out in terms of like it says like he won't even load the dishwasher. Which, oh my god, like the amount of dishes that I have right over there, I would load any dishwasher happily. But he won't help with the kids. He doesn't come with them to the 4th of July barbecue. Um, he takes like a kind of second job or whatever. I think it talks about him moonlighting, like basically working extra hours at a different hospital or something. Which doesn't seem like he needs to do that, right? It seems like they're pretty well off. So it seems like he's a lot more dedicated and interested in his job than his family or helping out with the family at all, right? And Mrs. Durago kind of wants him to do more, and the story starts with them having a fight, right? So basically what we can see is like Mrs. Durago is unhappy because she wants to try to become a doctor also. She clearly has asked Mr. Durago to kind of stop working so much and take care of the kids more so that she can try to also become a doctor. In which case they would have so much money if both of them were doctors. Like I don't know, like it's not like oh well he can't work less because they wouldn't have enough money. Like yeah they seem to be doing fine. But he refuses to do this because he just I guess doesn't want to hang out with the family. He's not into it. So there's kind of a tension there, right? And I think that's where Eve comes in. Since Dr. Durago won't sacrifice any of his professional stuff to stay with the family more, they need to bring in a nanny, right? That's kind of the solution that he has for that. Okay, other characters. Back in Nigeria, we have Madam Queen, is maybe the most important character from those flashbacks. Um, she is like an old woman who lives in Eve's town. She's kind of a local like community leader, community organizer, or something like that. It talks about her giving speeches in her yard that people come and listen to, like they're her disciples or whatever. Um, and she tells old folk stories, of the traditional kind of religious stuff back in Nigeria. And then she also becomes the leader of the kind of protest movement that we see come about in the story, right? When at the end of the story, it talks about how the women from Eve's village, including her mother and her boyfriend's mother and all these people that she knows, um, they basically form a protest against the oil company who is like polluting the land and stuff and not just kind of breaking any environmental laws that there are and not really caring. So the people form a protest. They try to like shut it down and get them to stop, dumping stuff in the rivers and killing all the animals and these sorts of things. So yeah, Madam Queen. In terms of motivations for her, we can say that she wants the environment to be improved, for there to be better laws and jobs for the people of Nigeria. So she's kind of the protest leader there. Also in Nigeria, kind of minor characters. We have like Eve's parents. We meet her boyfriend in flashbacks, who she broke up with right before coming to America. So yeah, those are most of our main characters. In terms of the plot of the story, so like I said, I wanted to turn to this one part. This is on page 11, at the bottom of page 11. This is where Mrs. Dorego is talking about how she needs to move into like hospital accommodations or whatever. So she says here, I'm moving into hospital accommodation. Mrs. Dorego says, yes, I've been thinking about it for a while. My commute is long. I'm in the hospital most of the time. Would you mind being alone in the house with the children and their father? I say I'm not sure. Her voice is insistent. It will only be for the next 6 months. I have to. I mean, you're not going to be with us forever. I supported my husband when he was in residency. I stayed with the children, but now I'm Dr. Dorego too. He has to learn how to support me, see? Um, so I think that's really important, because that shows like why the Doregos brought Eve in, and how important it is to Mrs. Dorego specifically that Eve stays and takes care of the children, right? Like, I don't think it would be going too far to say that they probably brought her in specifically for this 6 month period where Mrs. Dorego is trying to move into hospital accommodation or whatever. So I think there's kind of a tension with the story being called Independence Day. I think there is kind of a tension in Eve's character that we see between like independence and doing what's right for you versus like responsibility, or like if you owe other people something. Because the Doregos, it tells us that they, paid for her flight to get into America. They, I'm sure, helped pay for like her immigration stuff. They, signed off on her immigration stuff. Like, she wouldn't have been able probably to come to America legally, or at least not as fast as she did, without the Doregos kind of like vouching for her legally, right? Um, so the Doregos did probably put out a lot of money and a lot of effort to bring Eve in, and I think they mentioned at one point like how it was important to them to get somebody from Nigeria, right? Because they wanted to, because they're Nigerian, obviously, the Doregos, and they wanted to have their kids be with someone who was from the same culture and had all that kind of background and stuff. So they do go really far out of their way to get Eve specifically. And then, kind of right when it's now getting to the moment where they really need her to stay, is when she's going to leave. Um, so I wonder if we view Eve as being, independent or as selfish, because I feel like you could look at the same act and call it either one of those, and you either make it more positive or more negative, or like, is it that at some point like you have to be at least kind of selfish if you're ever going to be independent, or else you're just going to do things for other people all the time and never have anything for yourself. Um, so I think that's kind of a question I'd be thinking about here. I also want to go to the end. Let's see, I'm going to skip through to the end here. So this is the end of the story. I know it ends kind of abruptly. I've had students ask me, like, oh, is there another page? Is there more? This is it, right? It's a short story. This isn't like a part of a novel or something like that. This is the whole thing. So this is where it ends, and it's interesting. It kind of ends with like the conversation. It doesn't give us the conversation that had been building up to the whole time, right? Because it says here at the very end, the last two sentences, Eve says, I have something to tell you, but you may not want to hear it. Eve, she says, Mrs. Dorego, what can be worse than me abandoning my children to you? And that's how it ends. And I think we know that what's worse than Mrs. Dorego abandoning her children to Eve is that Eve's not going to take them, right? Is that she's going to leave and try to go to Mississippi or whatever, where she knows someone who can try to help her get a green card. So yeah, I think where it ends, it's kind of like a climactic moment, but then we don't get it, right? So that's an interesting choice too, to kind of give us like this cliffhanger where like we probably know what's going to happen next, right? Eve's going to say that she is going to leave. I would assume Mrs. Dorego is probably going to like get mad or try to convince her not to or something. But we kind of know where it's going to go from there. So yeah, and then it ends with Eve apparently about to go and try to get her independence and try to become a nurse and all that. And then Mrs. Dorego, I don't know what she's going to do. Is she still going to be able to become independent? Is she going to be able to become a doctor or something? I don't know. She'd have to find another nanny, maybe. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff going on here. I have a few topics on there. We're going to look at some stuff like gender, immigration, globalization, and protesting. So we'll talk about all those things, but I just wanted to make sure we get kind of the fundamentals of the plot together before we dive into that. All right, so I think I'm gonna leave it there for now, and we'll talk more soon.